Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. I had pulled another double shift at the factory, which meant another late night. My boss had asked me to stay and cover for someone who'd called in sick, and, as always, I agreed. I'd been doing this for years, putting in the hours, earning the overtime, all so that Emily and I could live comfortably. But that night, something didn't sit right with me. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was something waiting for me, something I couldn't yet name. When I pulled up to our house, I noticed that Daniel's truck was gone from his driveway. It wasn't unusual. Daniel worked odd hours as a freelance photographer, but for some reason, seeing his empty driveway that night sent a chill down my spine. I walked inside, setting my keys on the small table by the door, and immediately sensed the change. Emily's coat wasn't hanging on the rack, and the scent of her perfume didn't linger in the air as it usually did. I called out, "Emily, I'm home," but only silence greeted me. I checked the living room and found it empty, the TV flickering with some late-night talk show she'd forgotten to turn off. I was exhausted, but something pulled me toward the kitchen, as if my body knew what my mind didn't want to accept. As I reached for the trash to throw away the remnants of my takeout dinner, the smell hit me, stale, pungent, and unmistakable. I pulled back the trash bag, and there they were, like a slap across the face, 2 used condoms, half hidden under a crumpled tissue. My heart skipped a beat, then started to hammer against my ribs so hard I thought it might burst. I stood there, staring, my brain unable to process what I was seeing. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they weren't hers. Maybe there was some kind of mistake. But deep down, I knew. I knew the truth, and it tore through me like a jagged blade. "Lucas." Emily's voice broke the silence, snapping me back to reality. She stood in the doorway, her eyes widening as she saw what I was holding. I watched her face, saw the flash of panic that disappeared as quickly as it had come. What is this?" My voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. Emily crossed her arms over her chest, trying to appear unfazed, but I saw the way her fingers tightened, the way her jaw clenched. "You're going through the trash now?" "Seriously, that's not an answer, Emily," I shouted, the words echoing off the walls. "Whose are these?" She sighed, rolling her eyes like I was a child asking an absurd question. "You're always so dramatic, Lucas." "It's not what you think." "Then tell me," I demanded, slamming the trash can lid down. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that you haven't been sneaking around behind my back." She looked away, and that's when I knew. "It's not that simple," she said, her voice cold. "You're never here, Lucas. You work all the time, and I'm left alone. What did you expect me to do? Be faithful?" I shouted. "I expected you to be faithful. For better or worse, that's what we promised each other. Or did you forget?" Emily's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't you dare throw that in my face. You're never around. I've been lonely, and you didn't even notice. All you care about is your job. That job is the reason you have this house, this life." I fired back. "Don't pretend this is my fault. Who is he, Emily? Who's the man you thought was worth destroying everything for?" She didn't answer immediately. I watched her swallow hard, watched her wrestle with herself, and then she said it. "It's Daniel." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. "Daniel?" I repeated, stunned. "Our neighbor, Daniel. The guy I've had beers with, the guy who borrows my tools and talks about football with me." "Yeah, that Daniel," she said with a shrug, like it was nothing, like she hadn't just driven a knife into my heart and twisted it. "It just happened." I took a step back, feeling as though the room was closing in around me. "You didn't even try to stop it." "Why would I?" Her tone was venomous now. "You weren't here, Lucas. You don't see me anymore, don't even look at me like you used to. Daniel was there. He made me feel wanted. And maybe if you'd bothered to notice, you'd understand why this happened." I felt a surge of rage, the kind that blurs your vision and makes your hands shake. You think that justifies what you did? I snarled. You think that gives you the right to throw away our marriage like it was nothing? Don't turn this around on me, she snapped back, her face twisted in anger. You did this. You pushed me to this. If you had just paid attention. No, I cut her off, my voice like ice. You don't get to blame this on me. You chose to do this. You chose him. Fine, she said, throwing up her hands. Maybe I did. And maybe it's the best decision I've ever made. The words were a punch to the gut, and I staggered back, breathless. For a moment, we stood there, staring at each other, the air thick with all the things we'd left unsaid. Finally, Emily turned on her heel, grabbing her coat from the rack. I'm leaving, she said, not looking back. Maybe you'll finally see what you've lost. And with that, she was gone. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the door she'd slammed shut, listening to the sound of her car engine fading into the night. I looked down at the trash can, at the evidence of her betrayal, and something inside me broke. I'll make you pay for this, I muttered to myself, the words bitter and heavy in my mouth. You and Daniel both. And in that moment, I made a vow. I would find out everything. I would make them regret the day they thought they could shatter me. The first step was clear. I needed help, someone who could see things I couldn't, someone who could help me find every secret Emily and Daniel had tried to hide. And I knew exactly who to call. The house felt emptier than ever after Emily left, as if her absence had sucked the life out of it. Every room seemed colder, darker, and all I could see were the shadows of what we used to be. The silence was deafening. I sat in the living room for hours that first night, staring at the wedding photo still hanging on the wall, the one where Emily and I were smiling, so full of hope, so unaware of what lay ahead. I felt a burning urge to tear it down, to smash it into 1,000 pieces. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, my anger simmering beneath the surface, as the minutes dragged into hours. The following morning, I woke up to find that Emily had taken more than just her clothes. Her closet was almost bare, but little things were missing too, the vase we bought on our honeymoon, the bracelet I'd given her on our anniversary, the framed picture of us with our dog that we'd lost last year. It was as if she was trying to erase every trace of herself from my life, leaving behind only the evidence of her betrayal. My phone buzzed on the table, snapping me out of my thoughts. I grabbed it, half expecting it to be Emily with some half-hearted apology, but instead, it was a message from Nina. Heard what happened. Call me. We need to talk. Nina was the last person I thought I'd be reaching out to, but I couldn't deny that I needed help. We'd known each other since college, and while we had lost touch over the years, I remembered how sharp she was, how fiercely loyal she could be when it mattered. She had a knack for seeing through people, for uncovering truths they wanted to keep buried. And right now, that was exactly what I needed. I took a deep breath and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. Lucas, she said, her voice warm, tinged with concern. I'm so sorry about Emily. I heard from Matt. Are you okay? Do I sound okay? I replied, harsher than I intended. I closed my eyes and softened my tone. Sorry, Nina. I don't know what to do. It's all right, she said gently. Look, I want to help you, but I need to know everything. Can you meet me? We arranged to meet at a small cafe downtown, the one we used to visit back when we were just college students cramming for exams. When I walked in, Nina was already there, sipping her coffee, her eyes scanning the room. She stood as I approached, and we embraced, though it felt different, awkward, like there was a chasm between us filled with all the years we'd been apart. Sit, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Tell me everything. I recounted the events, the condoms, the confrontation, Emily's admission about Daniel, and with each word, I felt the weight of my anger, my grief, my humiliation. Nina listened, her expression unreadable, nodding occasionally, but never interrupting. When I finally finished, she leaned back, her eyes narrowing. She didn't even try to deny it. "No," I muttered, shaking my head. She blamed me. Said I was never around, that I didn't pay enough attention to her. "That's classic deflection," Nina said, her voice cool and analytical. "She's trying to make it your fault so she doesn't have to face the guilt." I know. I clenched my fists, the nails digging into my palms. But it still hurts. And it's not just about her, it's him, too. I trusted him, Nina. We were friends. How could they do this to me? Nina reached across the table, placing a hand over mine. "We're going to find out, Lucas. We're going to make sure they can't keep getting away with this. But I need you to be ready, because it's going to get messy." "What do you mean?" I asked, meeting her eyes. "They've been lying to you for months," she explained. "If they're this comfortable with what they've done, they'll be expecting you to roll over, to just accept it. We can't let that happen. You need to fight back, but first, we have to know exactly what we're up against." "So, what do we do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "First, we gather evidence," she said. "Real evidence, more than just those condoms in the trash. Messages, emails, photos, anything that shows the true extent of their relationship. You deserve to know the whole truth, and once we have it, we'll make sure everyone else does too." I nodded, feeling a sense of purpose for the first time since Emily had walked out. "I want to make them pay for this," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Nina's eyes flashed with determination. "We will," she promised. "But you need to be smart about this. Don't confront them again, not until we have everything we need. And Lucas," she paused, looking me dead in the eyes, "be ready for what we might find. It's going to hurt, but it's the only way to take back control." The next few weeks were a blur of late-night phone calls, secret meetings, and digging through the wreckage of my marriage. Nina was relentless, pulling strings and using her connections to track down every detail, every lie, every moment of betrayal. Each new piece of evidence felt like another stab to the heart, but it also fueled my resolve. One night, as we sat in her apartment poring over emails she'd managed to recover from Emily's account, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. How did I not see any of this? I muttered, shaking my head. How did I let it get this far? "Because you trusted her," Nina replied softly. "And she took advantage of that. But now, you have to stop blaming yourself. This isn't on you, Lucas. This is on them." I looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time since we'd reconnected. "Why are you helping me, Nina? After all this time," she hesitated, then sighed. "Because you're my friend. And because I know what it's like to be betrayed by someone you thought you could trust." There was a flicker of pain in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before, and I realized that maybe Nina understood more than she let on. I reached out, taking her hand. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "I don't know what I'd do without you." She squeezed my hand in return. "We're not done yet, Lucas. This is just the beginning. But when we're finished, they're going to wish they'd never crossed you." I left Nina's apartment that night feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. For the first time since Emily's confession, I felt like I wasn't drowning. I had a purpose. I had a plan. And most importantly, I had a friend who was willing to fight with me. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a message from Emily. "Can we talk?" "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, and then I turned it off without replying. There would be a time for talking, but not yet. First, I needed to finish what Nina and I had started. And by the time we were done, Emily and Daniel would know exactly what it meant to betray me. The days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, I found myself deeper in the trenches of my battle against Emily and Daniel. With Nina's help, I began piecing together the puzzle of their affair. We spent hours combing through Emily's emails and social media accounts, documenting every flirty exchange, every secret rendezvous. The more we uncovered, the more my anger morphed into something more potent, determination. I wasn't just going to confront them, I was going to expose them. One night, as we sat in Nina's apartment surrounded by papers and laptops, I felt a sense of urgency rising within me. We need to gather more evidence, I said, pacing back and forth. I want to confront them with everything we have before I take it to anyone else. Nina looked up from her screen, her brows knitted in concern. Lucas, are you sure about this? They might react badly. If you go in without a plan, I don't care, I interrupted, the fire in my gut burning hot. I need them to know that I know. I can't let them think they can get away with this. I've spent too long feeling powerless. Nina leaned back, crossing her arms. Okay, but promise me you'll let me be there. You can't do this alone. I paused, catching the intensity in her eyes. You think they'll come after you too? I think they'll try to undermine your position, and I'm not going to let that happen. We both need to be prepared for their games. Fine. Together then, I agreed, and the resolve in her gaze gave me strength. As the week dragged on, we continued to gather evidence. I learned of secret meetings between Emily and Daniel, late-night phone calls, and even a few instances where they'd gone out to dinner without my knowledge. Each new piece of information felt like a fresh wound, but with each revelation, I also felt myself growing stronger. I was no longer the victim in this situation, I was becoming the architect of my own justice. On a particularly grueling night, as I was scrolling through Emily's Instagram feed, I noticed a picture of them together, their arms draped around each other, grinning like they were the happiest couple in the world. The caption read, "Can't wait for our little getaway." My heart sank, but beneath that sorrow, a wave of rage surged. I slammed my laptop shut. I can't believe this, I growled, pacing the room. They think this is some kind of joke. A getaway? It's sickening. Nina looked over at me, her expression a mixture of sympathy and determination. Lucas, this is exactly why we're doing this. They need to see the consequences of their actions. You need to show them that you won't be a passive participant in this. Yeah, I get it, I replied, running my hands through my hair. It's just hard to believe that someone I loved could do this. Nina leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. You loved her, but that doesn't mean she's the person you thought she was. It's important to remember that. I know, I said, my voice trailing off. But I thought we had something real. How could she just throw it all away for him? People make terrible choices when they're unhappy, Nina said gently. And from what you've told me, Emily was clearly unhappy. But that doesn't excuse her betrayal. You deserve to know the truth. The next day, we made our plans. We decided to confront Emily and Daniel at their favorite restaurant, a quaint little place with a cozy atmosphere that had once been a special spot for our anniversaries. The thought of it sent a shiver down my spine, but I knew it had to be done. Are you ready for this? Nina asked, glancing at me as we pulled into the parking lot. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. Let's just get this over with. We walked in, and I spotted them almost immediately. Emily sat across from Daniel, her head thrown back in laughter at something he said, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in months. My stomach twisted. I felt like an intruder, an unwanted guest at a party where I no longer belonged. Nina squeezed my arm, grounding me. You can do this. Remember why we're here. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to unfold. I walked toward their table, Nina by my side. As I approached, I could feel my heart racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Mind if we join you? I said, forcing a calmness into my voice. Emily's laughter died in her throat as she looked up, her eyes widening in shock. Lucas. What are you doing here? Funny, I was wondering the same thing, I replied, my voice icy. I thought I'd check in on you and your new boyfriend. Daniel's expression shifted from surprise to defensiveness. What's this about, Lucas? You don't need to cause a scene. Oh, I think I do, I shot back, feeling the fire of anger reignite within me. You think I wouldn't find out? You think I wouldn't know about the getaway you planned? Emily's face turned pale as she glanced at Daniel, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the fear in her eyes. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, I replied, my voice rising. You lied to me, and you lied to yourself. How long were you planning to keep this from me? Was I just supposed to keep being the oblivious husband while you two played house? Lucas, please, Emily said, her tone shifting to desperation. This isn't fair. You don't know what it's been like for me. You've been working all the time. I was lonely. You don't get to turn this around on me. I'm not turning anything around, Emily. You made your choices. You chose him over me. I gestured toward Daniel, who sat there with a smug expression that made my blood boil. Nina stepped in, her voice firm. You both need to understand that your actions have consequences. Lucas deserves to know the truth about what's been happening between you two. Daniel scoffed. What are you trying to do, Nina? You think you can just swoop in and save Lucas? This isn't about you. It's always about you, isn't it, Daniel? I snapped, my voice laced with venom. You think you can just take what's mine and not face the consequences? Guys, let's just take a step back. Emily tried to mediate, but I cut her off. No, let's not. You think this is just going to blow over? That I'll walk away and let you both live your happy little lives? Not a chance. I have evidence, and I will make sure everyone knows what you've done. Emily's eyes narrowed, her voice dropping to a whisper. You wouldn't dare. You'll ruin everything. Everything's already ruined, Emily. I shouted, feeling the tears prick my eyes but forcing them back. You made this choice, and now you'll face the music. With that, I turned on my heel, the weight of my heartache crashing over me like a tidal wave. I could hear their voices behind me, a mix of anger and desperation, but I didn't stop. I had opened the door to the unraveling of my life, and now it was time to see just how deep the betrayal ran. As Nina hurried to catch up with me, I felt a sense of finality settling over me. This was just the beginning. I was done being the victim. It was time to take back my narrative and expose them both for who they truly were. The fallout from this confrontation would ripple through our lives, but I was ready. The truth was on my side, and I wouldn't rest until they both faced the consequences of their choices. The weeks that followed the confrontation felt like an eternity. Each day dragged on with the weight of the upcoming reckoning looming over me like a dark cloud. I spent sleepless nights piecing together my evidence against Emily and Daniel, documenting their betrayals and preparing for the inevitable fallout. With Nina's help, I was starting to feel more like the architect of my own fate and less like a victim of their choices. On a chilly morning, as I sat at my kitchen table sipping coffee and staring at the folder filled with evidence, I received a text from Nina. Let's meet tonight. It's time to finalize everything. My heart raced at the thought of what was to come. Tonight would be the culmination of all our hard work, a moment I both longed for and dreaded. As the sun began to set, I made my way to Nina's apartment. The air was crisp, and each step felt heavier than the last. I walked through the door, and Nina was already there, surrounded by papers and a laptop. She looked up and offered a reassuring smile. You ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be, I said, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. I just keep thinking about how this will affect the kids. I don't want them to see their mother like this. Nina nodded, her expression turning serious. I understand, but this is about holding Emily accountable. You can't allow her to paint you as the villain. You have to protect your narrative. I inhaled deeply, nodding in agreement. You're right. It's just hard to believe it's come to this. We can do this together, she said, her voice steady. Let's go over everything one last time. As we reviewed the evidence, text messages, photos, and the details of their secret meetings, I felt a sense of empowerment washing over me. I was no longer the passive observer in this disaster. I was about to take action. Later that evening, we decided it was time to confront Emily and Daniel together, to ensure they understood the full scope of the situation. We chose a local bar, a familiar haunt for all of us, hoping it would serve as a neutral ground for the showdown. As we walked through the door, I felt my heart racing, but Nina's presence beside me provided a reassuring anchor. "I'll handle the first part," Nina said, glancing around the bar. "Just give me a signal when you're ready to step in." I nodded, taking a seat at a table where I had once shared countless laughs with Emily. The nostalgia was overwhelming, but I pushed it aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. After a few minutes, I spotted Emily and Daniel walking in, their laughter echoing across the room. They looked so at ease, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Nina approached them, her voice steady. "Emily, Daniel, we need to talk. It's important." Emily's smile faltered as she registered Nina's seriousness. "What's going on?" she asked, her brows furrowing. "Lucas knows everything," Nina stated, her tone unyielding. "And he's here tonight to confront you both about it." "What?" "No, you can't just," Emily began, her voice rising. "Why not?" "You've made your choices," I interjected, standing up and facing them both. "And it's time you faced the consequences." Daniel shot me a look of irritation. "What are you talking about, Lucas? We don't have to do this here." "Oh, we absolutely do," I shot back, my voice steady. "I'm tired of playing nice. You think I wouldn't find out about your affair? You think you could lie to me and get away with it?" "Lucas, please," Emily said, her expression shifting from surprise to panic. "You don't understand." "No, I understand perfectly," I interrupted, feeling a surge of confidence. "You chose him over our family. You broke your vows. You betrayed me." Daniel smirked, trying to assert his dominance. "You're making a fool of yourself, Lucas. You don't know what you're talking about." I stepped closer, my heart racing. "Don't play games with me, Daniel. I have everything documented. Emails, texts, photos, proof of your betrayal. You're not going to twist this around on me." Emily's face drained of color, and for a moment, I thought I saw fear flash in her eyes. "What do you mean, proof?" she stammered. "Everything," I said firmly. "You and Daniel have been sneaking around for months. I have it all right here." I gestured to the folder in my bag, feeling empowered by the knowledge that I held their fate in my hands. Nina stepped in, her voice calm but unwavering. "We're not here to make threats, but to hold you accountable. You need to understand the impact of your choices, Emily. Lucas deserves to know the truth, and so do you." "I was lonely," Emily finally admitted, her voice cracking. "You were never around, Lucas. You were always working. I was providing for us." I shot back. "You didn't even try to talk to me. You just decided to throw everything away." Daniel stepped forward, a defensive edge to his voice. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to ruin us. You're just bitter because you didn't pay attention to your wife." "Don't you dare put this on me," I warned, my anger boiling over. "You had no right to step into my life like this. You were supposed to be my friend." "Friend?" Daniel scoffed, the smirk on his face faltering. "You think you can make me the villain here? You're the one who pushed her away." "Enough!" Nina shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "This isn't helping anyone. Lucas, it's time to take control of this situation. If they can't acknowledge what they've done, then you need to show them how serious this is." With a determined nod, I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. I slammed it down on the table between us. "You want proof? Here it is," I said, my voice firm. "Every text, every lie. You'll see just how low you both have sunk." As I opened the folder, a sense of satisfaction surged through me. The evidence was undeniable. I started reading some of the messages aloud, feeling the weight of the truth settle over the table like a shroud. "Can't wait to see you tonight," I read, my voice steady. "I wish Lucas didn't have to work so much. It's so nice to finally be with someone who understands me. Do you want me to keep going? Emily's face was a mixture of horror and disbelief, while Daniel's expression darkened as the truth began to sink in. I can't believe you would do this, Emily finally whispered, her voice trembling. You were my husband, and you were my wife. I shot back. This isn't just about you, Emily. This is about the life we built together, and you threw it all away. The tension in the room thickened, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in their facade. Emily glanced at Daniel, searching for support, but I could see uncertainty creeping into her eyes. You think you can just walk away from this? I continued, my voice rising. You think I'll just let you pretend it never happened? I'm taking this to court. You're going to face the consequences of your actions, both of you. Daniel's bravado crumbled. You wouldn't do that. You'll ruin everything, and you both ruined everything the moment you decided to betray me, I shot back. I'm done being the victim in this. I'm taking back control of my life, and you'll face the consequences. As I spoke, I felt the weight of the world lift from my shoulders. This was the reckoning I had been waiting for. It was no longer just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity, my life, and my children's future. Let's get out of here, Nina said, her voice calm but firm. She gave me a nod, and together we walked away from the table, leaving Emily and Daniel behind, their world unraveling in the wake of the truth. As we stepped outside, the cool night air hit me like a refreshing wave. I took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline coursing through my veins. This was just the beginning of my fight for justice, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control. Are you okay? Nina asked, concern etched on her face. I am, I said, meeting her gaze. Thank you for being here, for helping me face them. I couldn't have done it without you. You're stronger than you realize, Lucas. Remember that as we move forward, she replied, a soft smile breaking through her serious demeanor. With newfound determination, I looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of hope for the future. The path ahead would be challenging, but I was ready. I was no longer just a victim, I was a fighter, ready to reclaim my life and seek justice for the betrayals I had suffered. This was my reckoning, and I was going to see it through to the end.